Hello, guys, and welcome to one more episode of Freedom. Today, my guest is the author of the book Go Giver, a Wall Street Journal and Business Week bestseller that has sold over 1 million copies. Since its release, it has consistently stayed in the top 25 on the Porchlight, formerly 800 CEO read. Business Book Bestsellers List, the book has been translated into 30 languages. It was rated 10th on Inc. magazine's list of the most motivational books ever written and was on the HubSpot 20 most highly rated sales books of all time. Bob is the author of a number of books on sales, referrals, influence, persuasion, and people skills, with a total book sales exceeding 2 million copies. The American Management Association named Bob one of the 30 most influential leaders, and he was named one of the top 200 most influential authors in the world by Richtopia. Bob is an advocate, supporter, and defender of the free enterprise system, believing that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. He is also an unapologetic animal fanatic and serves as part of South Florida Rescue, Foster, and Adoption Organization. Bob has regularly addressed audiences ranging in size from 50 to 16,000, sharing the platform with notables including today's top thought leaders, broadcast personalities, Olympic athletes, and political leaders, including a former United States president. So, after all this introduction, thank you, Bob, for coming to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, my friend. So, to start, what I got from the book The Go Giver, it is fundamentally the spirit of giving and serving purely without any expecting. Well, what I really remember getting from the book after reading it, it is that spirit of purely giving without the intention of receiving when you are doing that. So on that, and if you want to address or add something to that, please do so. I want to ask. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's not expecting to receive. I think you do expect to receive. You expect good things to happen. Why wouldn't you? I think it's without attachment to
Mm-hmm.
having to receive, without an emotional attachment to things having to work a certain way. So when you're giving great value to the marketplace, you're creating a very benevolent context for wonderful things to come back to you. And I want people to expect those great things to happen, but I don't want you to be attached to it having to happen or having to have that. This is the Freedom Podcast. One part of freedom is not being attached to results. It's
Yes.
being able to do the right things for the right reasons, understanding that when you do, and not for any magical, mystical type of reasons, but just the way nature is, human nature, the economic nature, physical nature, the more value you add to others, the more value that's going to come back to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, and why do you think the law of receiving, as I call it, because I know you put different laws and in other terms in your book, The Go Giver, but how do you think these laws come from and how it works?
Yeah. So all of the laws that John David Mann, my fantastic co-author, all the laws we talked about were really nothing was made up by us. Nothing was invented. There's nothing experimental about it.
Hmm.
These principles are principles that successful people in business have used for as long as there have ever been market economies. Now, don't get me wrong, many of them didn't know that's what they were necessarily doing. They maybe did it intuitively or what have you, but they always tapped into those five laws. The laws of value, which talks about the making every experience so valuable to the other person that they feel great about it and that they voluntarily will exchange their money for that value, right? So the law of value, the law of compensation, which is all about the number of lives you touch, the number of lives you impact with your value. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that basically tells you the income that you're going to earn. When we talked about the law of influence, well, it says place the other person's interests first, but that doesn't mean that you're being self-sacrificial. It doesn't mean you're being a doormat to be stepped on by others. It doesn't mean you're being a martyr. It simply means you understand that people aren't going to do business with you for your reasons. They're going to do business with you for their reasons. People are going to buy from you because they believe that they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. So if you want to succeed in business, the best thing you can do for yourself is put your own self-interest to the side, because again, people aren't buying for your self-interest, and to focus on that other person and their interests. It's like Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, make your win all about the other person's win. When we talk about authenticity, being yourself, uh being congruent with your values. Okay, and then the fifth law, the law of receptivity, is all about the receiving. It simply means, sure, you breathe out, but you also have to breathe in. It's not one or the other. You breathe out carbon dioxide, you breathe in oxygen. You breathe out, which is giving value. You breathe in, which is receiving value. Now, this is something that every sustainably successful business person has done, because if you took away even one of those five,
Hmm.
you couldn't be nearly as successful.
Wow, amazing and profound, powerful.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Bob, thank you for sharing. And I want to ask you this, which is this inherently to results, meaning I can do this and I will always be successful, or there are some limits or some equation that we should be paying attention to?
Well, if you do these things that we talk about, if you follow these laws, you have to be successful. You must be successful. What happens though is someone might say, "Well, but I'm giving all this value to others, and nothing's happening. I'm not receiving anything. People don't want to do business with me." Well, let's understand what value really means. Okay,
Hmm.
see, price is a dollar figure or a euro or a peso or a yen or
Yes.
whatever it happens to be. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. Um, it's finite. It simply is what it is. Value is different from price. Value is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, this service, this concept, this idea, the knowledge you're wanting to provide, or the introductions you may, or whatever it is, that what is it that's of so much worth to them, right? That
Yes.
they want to be in relationship with you, that they begin to know you, like you, trust you, want to do business with you, want to talk to others about you. And so what happens is a mistake is made where we might think we're giving all this great value to people, but its value as we understand it to be a value, not necessarily as the other person sees it as being of value, right? So here's the thing. If you're providing value to another human being as they understand it to be of value, it's always going to work out. Now, that doesn't mean they're always going to be your customer or your client. Nothing's 100%, nothing's close to that.
Yeah.
But it means if you're continually providing immense value to others, as others understand that to be of value, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're
Yes.
you're you're doing this with lots of people. Again, you're creating that benevolent context for your success. A certain amount of people are going to do business with you.
Yeah, and I believe one of the reasons for that, if I might, it is because every time people talk about you, they will only have, or we hope, only positive things to talk about
Sure,
you, right?
sure,
So if you have a thing that you work on and people need that, they will remember you and they will talk about you, right?
sure, absolutely. Great point.
Okay. Um, so I want you to share a little bit on the core aspects of the laws in the Go Giver book to our audience that might not know the
Hmm.
book and they want to get some snippets of
Sure.
it.
Sure. So we gave a little bit of an overview of the laws earlier. So let's go a little deeper into them. So the law of value says your true worth, in the business sense, of course, your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. So here's what this means. Because it sounds like what we're saying is, you're going to go broke, give more in value than you take in payment. But remember what we were talking about with price and value. They're two different things. So let's say, for example, we use a restaurant like we used in the story, Iafrate's Italian restaurant. Okay. So when you eat there, remember it was a kind of a high priced restaurant in a swanky part of the village. So if you eat there, you're probably going to pay some really good money to eat there,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
But the experience that you're receiving while eating there is way over and above what you're paying. Okay. So again, you may pay, especially at dinner time, you might pay $150 for for your meal, $150 or euros or pesos or yen or whatever it happens to be. Okay. But what happens is, when you from the moment you get there, okay, and they see you approaching and they open the doors for you and they greet you warmly and they introduce you to Sal, the maitre d, and he gently brings you over to the table where you meet the wait staff, and they take wonderful care of you, and the ambiance is wonderful, the food is delicious, and it's presented so well. And when Ernesto's there, he comes over and talks to you and he remembers your name. And you come away, you may have paid 150 whatever, but you come away feeling like a million, right?
Yes.
You receive more in value than what you paid. But obviously, the cost of keeping the restaurant open, paying the employees, the food, the cost of goods sold, everything cost Ernesto a lot less than what he's charging. So both parties win. But it's because the seller, their focus is not on the money they're making. They appreciate that, but that's not their focus. The focus is on the value that they're providing, in making sure that the value, the experience is so wonderful that the customers or clients feel as though they're receiving much more in value than what they're paying. So the customer feels great about it, and the salesperson or the entrepreneur, the business person, also does, because everybody profits. Everybody comes away better off afterwards than they were beforehand. But it's because the focus is on the value you're providing. This is why John David Mann and I say that money is simply an echo of value. That simply means the value must be the focus. The value comes first. The money you receive is a natural result of the value you've provided. That's law number one, the law of value. So, law number two, the law of compensation, says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So, in with Iafrate's restaurant, it's not enough just to serve one person, right?
Yes.
Remember, the restaurant was jam packed, for lunch, the lunch rush, and the evening, day after day after day, right? So he's
Yes.
serving a whole lot of people, and with great value,
When
and that
with lots of the restaurants as well, if I remember
exactly,
correctly.
yeah, yeah. And so that's law number two. It's not just the value that's very important, but it's how many lives you impact with that value.
And if you want to continue, or can I? Okay, okay.
That was law number two. Go ahead, and then we can always move on if you'd like.
Okay, so I want to ask you this, which is, and to businesses that are, let's say, low tire price, or that are not in such beautiful, pretty restaurants, where the experience is amazing and beautiful. It is high standards. What is if it is a business
Okay.
that is this still small? It cannot afford to provide an experiences that is comparable to a high tire restaurant, for example. How can these laws apply to these specific small businesses that don't
Okay.
have so much resources?
That's for yeah, for and let me answer that first by let's look at another type of restaurant though, that's a lower price restaurant. Now, my favorite restaurant in my area where I live is a little restaurant called the Juno Beach Cafe. The food is good, but again, so are a lot of restaurants' foods. But it's a breakfast place, basically, and it's always busy. The food's good, the prices are decent, okay, but it's not a high end restaurant, right?
Mm-hmm.
S-
Yeah.
So what do they do? Well, the owners, the wait staff, they all make you feel like your family, right?
Mm,
They all just make you feel so good and so welcome, right? They
yes.
also there's a culture where everyone there gets along with everyone else. Like you get the feeling they're all happy, and the whole ambiance is one of happiness. And in fact, the last couple of years that my dad was alive, he could not come to the restaurant, so my mother and I would go to the restaurant every Saturday morning for breakfast. And one of the waitresses, Nancy, because we would always take home some oatmeal from my dad, a big thing of oatmeal, on the plastic cup, she would draw a picture and hearts, and she'd say, "We love you, Dad,"
Mm,
right? And we take that home, and that always just brightened my dad's day so much, right? So you don't have to be a you know uh, the Ritz Carlton hotel. You don't have to be that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anywhere you are, you can always provide a great experience. The mechanic can have a clean place, right? Where everyone feels welcome. People are polite. People are neat. People are right. It go to any business, and what you find, and we call these the elements of value. There's excellence. There's consistency, which means the same thing time and time again. That same great experience. There's attention to detail. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
both in what you do, but also in how you pay attention to people as human beings, not just as prospects or customers. There's empathy. It's really putting yourself in the place of the feelings of that other person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's appreciation and gratitude. It's making people feel as though you appreciate them for being human beings, for being your customers, for being. So there's all sorts of things we can do to make that experience better than simply the intrinsic value of our product or service.
Mm-hmm. And what about, for example, somebody is watching is this that is a business owner, for example, and has employees, but they have some small contradictions to what is the message that we are sharing with the people. For example, they are not so great in talking with people. They cannot yet give that wonderful experiences to customers, remembering the name, etc. What a business owner that finds in this position can do, for example, so their staff it can improve in a small
Mhm.
business place.
Well, this is where training comes in.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just expecting that people are going to do what you want them to do when they don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
But it really begins with your expectations in terms of the culture that you set. John Maxwell, the great leadership authority, says everything rises and falls on leadership, right?
Yes.
And so, when this person comes in and decides, you know, that our culture is going to be one that is very focused on providing immense experiences for our clients. Okay. But what that also means is that leader and his or her leadership team needs to make sure to provide wonderful experiences for all their employees.
Mm-hmm. So they
Right.
can also replicate that standard,
Exactly.
right? Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And this is a decision. It's a decision to have that kind of culture, for that to be, your highest value, and one that you're going to be congruent with in everything you say and in everything you do.
Mm-hmm. And Bob, which is the one question that you like to get asked on the book or your career, if I might?
I don't know if there's one necessary question about it, but I think when people say, like, what's the, what can you really do to make sure that you apply these laws? I think it's just taking the action to do so. It's not worrying about being perfect when you do them. If you recall in the story, Pindar, the mentor, told
Mhm.
Joe, the protege, that the one agreement he had to make, that Joe had to agree to for mentorship, was that each day he had to apply the law that he had learned, right?
Yeah,
Because what
I
Pindar
remember.
wanted was for Joe not to be perfect, but to act on it, right? And
Mhm.
Zig Ziglar used to say that anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you learn how to do it well. Now, he wasn't saying, of course, to go out and purposely do things haphazardly or poorly. No, what he was saying is we're not going to be, well, we're never going to be perfect, but we're not even going to be excellent at first.
Yes.
We need to just start doing the thing, imperfectly as it may be, and then as we do it, we get better and better and better.
Thanks, Bob, for the kind and useful response. Um, so I want to go a little bit to the experiences as an author that you have. So, which would be your advice to new authors or people that want to be authors of successful books?
Well, I think first it's learning how to write. John David Mann, my co-author, he has a wonderful free ebook called "How to Write Good," or at least gooder. Which, if you know English, that is not good English, but that's his sense of humor. But if you go to John David Mann,
Mhm.
JohnDavidMann.com, in the upper right hand corner, there'll be a little red, I think it's red, circle that says to click there to download his free ebook. And it's really a masterful look at how to write. Of course, there are other books on writing. Stephen King has some great books on writing. Trying to think of the name of the other person. I'm not thinking of it right now, but there's lots
Yeah,
of great
John.
books on writing. But I would begin with John's.
Mhm.
It's very, very good. He even actually teaches a master class on how to write a book.
Ah,
So
wow.
so that's the next step. It doesn't mean you have to take John's course, but what I am suggesting is learn the craft. Take a night course at your local university or school, where someone's teaching writing. Go to, on YouTube, look for articles on how to write. So learn the craft of writing. The next thing is to, depending upon if you're looking to have the book published by a major publishing house, is you need to know how to find an agent. That's very important because it's the agent that is going to shop the book around to the different publishing houses. On the other hand, you can publish yourself independently, or even go with a um, what's called a hybrid uh, type of publisher, and so which is sort of self-publishing, but you're paying them to handle all the book production aspects. So there's many things you can do. So yeah, I mean, I think like anything else, first you learn how to do the thing you want to do, then you start applying it, right? And then you realize that there's going to be a lot of little failures along the way, a lot of
Totally.
mistakes, a lot of frustration, a lot of people saying no, a lot of all those things, but that's part of life and that's part of business. And it's the same when it comes to publishing a book. But my overall suggestion is, if you believe you have a book out there that can bring value to the marketplace and will bring you joy in doing it, by all means do it. Write your book.
Fantastic. Bob, we have still 10 minutes left, and I want to ask one more question about
Sure.
the book that came to my mind. But maybe we first finish here the topic on the devices to authors. So I want to still ask you, even though now I learned to write and I have these tips that I am applying, there is any more magical thing or tip that you can share or that you learned while writing the book, or something that people uh, gave you good compliments that you wrote? Do you have something that you can share too?
Regarding the Go Giver book,
Yes,
sure.
or general, or general.
Well, I mean, anytime that we receive feedback from someone that says the book made a difference in their lives, helped them in some way, made them think of something they hadn't thought of before, or helped them think of something maybe in a little bit different way.
Mhm.
Or maybe even when someone said, I knew that, but I needed to read it again. Right.
Yes.
Anytime we hear something like that is always just such a great compliment. We also love hearing when people say that they've used the book with their family. They have like family discussions about the book or things like. So all those things are just that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. And Bob, I think that the book, The Go Giver, is a lot more than business because I found the spirit that I get into after reading your book is one of giving purely without that attachment of receiving, but be willing to receive when it comes the time to, if
Oh,
it comes.
exactly.
And
Mhm.
even though that's your niche, I feel that can really be useful also to friends, family, to do into
Sure.
other aspects of life. Have you received any compliments or people that found that useful into those areas?
Yeah, well, that's why we had that subplot about, remember, with Joe and Susan, his wife? And we had a
Hmm.
little bit of a subplot about, where he and his wife did things, 50-50. And Pindar said, a happy marriage is not 50-50, it's
uh,
100, right? For both.
yeah.
And, so it's interesting that John, my co-author, he and his wife, Anna, they actually wrote a fifth book because John and I wrote four of these together in the series. They wrote a fifth book called The Go Giver Marriage, where it was,
Wonderful.
yeah, the first part was a parable, and then the second part was a how-to
Oh,
aspect, and they
amazing.
wrote a beautiful book together. And but in all the books that we've done, we've always taken still those same basic five laws, but we've just geared them a little differently. It's to leadership, to influence, to, in John and Anna's case, marriage. So yeah, I agree with you totally. It's not the principles are not. It's not just a business book. It's a life book.
Yes,
And
I feel that a lot, and the spirit that it gives me just reading your book and rereading before this interview, what I could, it was really something that's on the book that it makes me receive it so well
oh,
that I
thank
don't, I don't know what it is, but it is simply magic, you know. So
oh.
thanks for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me.
Okay, Bob, we are almost finishing. I'm just looking here to the chat to see if we have any question that makes sense to put here in
Okay.
this context. Okay, we have some questions here, but are
Feel welcome to ask. Go
really
right ahead.
these are like philosophical questions. Not sure if you are
That's okay. Whatever you'd like.
okay. So I am curious about this one. Hello, good evening. Do you think that if human beings were born with the notion of good and evil, there will be uh, genocide? So really, really
I
philosophical
think there
question,
are
I guess.
I think there are good people in the world. I think there are evil people in the world. I think most people, I think there's a continuum though, in that I think most people are decent people. uh Society then has we all learn, and our beliefs form from different sources, whether it's upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, popular culture, cultural mores. You hear a lot of things from people, and you see on the internet, and you see people feeling very, very strongly about something when it's just not true, right?
Mhm.
And you say, wow, they really believe this stuff, right? But they do, because they've heard it and it fits with their already held belief system. So they believe something is true when actually, if they did their research, they would find it's actually the opposite. So I think there are all sorts of people in the world. And it's a matter of we can adapt and we can change as we're exposed to different things and different people, but human nature is human nature.
Oh yes, and we are definitely capable of both. And I think and I think too that we most of us have good intents and they look to do good,
I
even
think most I think
yeah,
most people
even though they sometimes don't. I think they have at least they believe they have
they
they believe
believe
they
they
are
are.
doing good. You know.
They believe they are.
Yes.
Yeah, which is, can be very dangerous. So,
Yes. Yes.
that's
Yeah.
why it's good to really get the facts before just deciding. You see so much hate in the world, and so much of it is based on very false premises. And again, it's a shame to see, but but we have to deal with reality. And the reality is that that is how things are. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a book which I'm trying to remembering the name, but basically the notion it is that inherently, no matter where the person is born, no matter the religion, culture, whatever it is, that we have an innate sense um, inside of us that know truly if something it is good or wrong. And I believe that. I believe no matter where we are born, that some little part of us knows if some action it is good or bad. And that notion, it is like the it is like that is within ourselves. And I believe that, in it, and I think it's a wonderful concept.
Yeah, I hope it's true. I really don't know. I don't know because I've seen people, and we're seeing so much of it here in the U.S. and through Europe and through all these different places where people are doing just horrible, vicious things,
Yes.
and they really think they are doing a good thing, and they believe that what they're doing is based on on something that is just not true at all. And I would like to think that they do know somewhere deep within them that what they're doing is wrong, but I don't know that they do.
Oh,
I
I
don't know
I believe that in the right context they will
in the
win
right
some
context.
consciousness about that
That,
for sure.
that yes, I agree with you on that. Yeah.
Okay, Bob, our time is ending. Thank you so much for
Oh, thank
sharing
you.
your knowledge. Any final thoughts that you want to add before closing?
No, I just appreciate meeting you on social media. I think it was on X.
Yes, yes, it
We
was on
we
X.
met.
Yes, yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
you're a great guy, and I appreciate the messaging that you're bringing to the world. And I just wish for you the best of continued success.
Thank you, Bob. If you want to check Bob's work, just check the link on the description, or if you are on Twitch, exclamation point, Bob. Thank you, Bob, one more time, and bye bye, everybody.